Slowly it rises.
Hey, it's ODB, the Lincoln Addict. We're going to look at this 67 Lincoln Continental Convertible that recently sold. I wanted to do this review before, however, it did end, and I'm going to just basically circle back to it. Just a reminder, LincolnAddict.com, you can find how to listen. There's a couple of links here, including LincolnAddict.podbean.com. It can link you over here. You can listen to the Lincoln Addict podcast for free. These different episodes are all listed here. I produced 2 in the last 2 weeks. So we talk about 60s cooling systems and the sedan versus the convertible differences. So check it out if you can. Now, before we get started with the 67 review, I did want to let you know, in terms of Barrett Jackson, if you recall, the one Lincoln that had not sold when I did my last update, or basically had not posted yet, if I could type with my right hand, was the 66. So what I want to do is just show you it sold for a really good price. I think a strong price, $71,500. Of course, that is the with the fee. So they don't show you, unfortunately, just the hammer price. But this car was relatively stock. I'm sure the top had been done at some point, but basically, if you look at this car, it has a nice set of wheels. Not everyone's forte, so to speak, and obviously that can be changed very easily. But overall, if you look at this car, I mean, whoever detailed it did a nice job. Super clean. It is an AC car with no fan shroud. A couple little things like that. It has the single reservoir, as you guys have heard me kind of talk about, but $71,500, not bad. I'm a blue guy in terms of cars. I love blue cars, but when you compare it to the Mecum 65, a black convertible that sold for $40,000, certainly kind of worlds apart in terms of the color and the year and things like that, but a very strong, solid price in my opinion for that 66. Now let's go to the 67. Speaking of blue, I'm going to do this review. I'm going to try to do it quicker than the others because I know sometimes I do get a little, I guess, long-winded, you could kind of say. I just enjoy talking about this stuff. If you look at this car and you go through these photos, kind of like I did quickly when I first saw this one, I looked and I said, this is a nice car. It's got nice paint. The seats have that kind of that patina, that original feel, which I've talked about a lot. Oftentimes when these cars are even very, very nice, when they're not painted or restored, you'll see, stuff in here, a lot of times just like a little bit of surface rust or a little bit of grit and grime. When these cars have been painted, I always kind of like to look in these areas and kind of see. Now here you're going to see some of these springs and the bolts and things like that. It was just all sprayed. And I know some people would say, well, you could take the time and you could take all that apart. Again, that's going to increase the price of a paint job. And at the end of the day, if it's a driver style car, do you really take the time and do all that? It just typically no is the answer. I would say. But, you can look at some of the normal things that I've talked about, like you've got the crack in the dash, which happens in a lot of these 67s. Again, I've talked about the 66 is a little different. If you ever look up here, there's kind of a space in 66 between this dash pad and the window, a larger space. And I've kind of come to the realization, at least in my mind, is that it seems like the 66 dash cracks less. And it could just be because they extended it a little bit further. I don't know, but that's at least kind of what I've seen. But when you go through these photos and you look at this car, I mean, I would love to own this Lincoln. It's super nice. It's super clean. I just showed you one a second ago. It did not have the fan shroud. I think in 66 and 67 had this same similar fan shroud, kind of more of a fiberglass material. I know that because, rest in peace, Tim Nill from the Lincoln Ranch, he used to have a method to kind of fix the cracks in these. So I remember talking with him about that. A couple things you can see that this has the correct, I'm not kind of an LCOC 100-point guy, but these clamps are more factory accurate for that time period. So a lot of times you'll see the regular radiator clamps. So it's got these, you can see how nice this hose looks. This little piece here where the expansion tank is at, this tends to crack, or you'll oftentimes see them at some point cracked, where this hose that just shoots right down to the ground in case it ever spills over, if you will. A lot of times you won't even see this. It'll just be gone, and that looks nice. And you've got the color matched items here. I think from the factory, these items looked more like this color. I know Blair and Teresa will sometimes, in their restorations, paint. They've got a certain paint that they use for these items, so you can kind of see that. But this engine bay, to me, looks really nice. And if we look at the description here in a second, what we're going to see is that there was a restoration done on this car. We can see it has the 2-port versus the 3-port. We in the Lincoln community swear by the 3 ports. However, I have said the caveat is, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I mean, if the car runs fine and you get it back to where you're at and it runs fine, then I would certainly buy a 3-port and always have it ready to go. But that's one thing I noticed there. And of course, it does have the dual reservoir in 67 with some of the changes that were made just in general to the automotive world. The dual master started there. Now, basically, okay, yeah, so there wasn't a lot of description. You basically says it has a professional mechanical restoration, including this auto restoration, 84,000 spent. I have all the receipts and photos. Now, why the person didn't maybe include those, I do think that there are some people that may not want, they don't know how to block out their information, or they just, I don't think everybody's like super tech savvy. If you are tech savvy, you sometimes probably roll your eyes and go, well, how could you just not upload more photos? I think eBay only lets you upload so many, and then there's like another process that you have to do to basically upload additional photos. But what I would say is certainly the person says they have them. So this is the type of deal that you would want to reach out to them. Now, I'm saying all that because I know some of you guys are going, well, Jason, this car's already sold. Certainly, I'm just kind of giving you a little bit of insight to if this car had not sold and you were looking at obtaining it, reach out to them. There's not a lot of, there's no photos underneath this car, but certainly what I can tell from it is seeing underneath this deck lid, and seeing, just how nice this car appears. You've got a dent here, a ding, if you will. To me, this is definitely one that I would have, if I was looking to buy one, I would have inquired more. Hey, can you send me a link to more photos? Can you send me some videos? Do the windows work? The top looks like it works fine. Do the vent windows work? Checking all that stuff out. But at least from my gut feeling, this looks really nice. I mean, I love the color. I love the contrast with the black. It was located in Brooklyn, New York. So, finding out what is the DSO and things like that, that's going to be key, so we can kind of get an idea for a little bit more information about it. But $31,200. That's the final price. Of course, you're going to have any applicable taxes and whatnot, depending on what state you live in. But then, oh, by the way, you're going to have your transport fees depending on where you live. So this person's probably going to have an easy 35 grand in it. But I think it was more than likely, at least my gut feeling says it was a good buy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Certainly appreciate the support. And again, LincolnAddict.com. You can find ways to listen. Apple Podcasts is probably the most popular. If you're on an Apple device, go to the pre-installed podcast app, search Lincoln Addict, hit follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified when I post new episodes. Take care, everyone. Stay on the rise.